Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to lecture 15. This is the last lecture in module 3 wherein we are talking about training need assessment. In the previous lecture we discussed about various techniques that we can use it for conducting training need assessment. In today's lecture we are going to discuss about competency model and how do we identify competencies required for a specific job role. So let us get into the lecture. As I said, we are going to look at and understanding what are the competencies for a specific job role, how organization will be identifying the required competencies to perform a specific job role. Okay, so now training need assessment actually identifies individuals' current level of competency, which we are referring to skill, knowledge in one or more areas, and compare it against the required competency as per the competency standard established for the particular position. Let's say this is a job A. Okay, job A will list down the KSA, which we say knowledge, skill, or and personal characteristics or behavioral characteristics, behaviors. Okay, personal characteristics are behaviors of employees who are performing this particular job. So now what are we actually essentially doing? We are trying to see through the training assessment whether my employees are having those competencies which are listed down for performing the particular job. So the gap between the present and the required competency will essentially serve as the tool to understand, okay, what is the need for a training for a specific set of employees, because are they having the sufficient competency or do they lack competency which are required part of their job role. Okay, so what are the competencies? We need to understand first before we go for competency model or what is the required competency for a job. So what is competencies? Competencies are set of skills, knowledge, abilities and a personal characteristics that will enable employees to perform their job successfully. For example, as I given the same example, A is a job and this job has 1, 2, 3, 4 as a task. Okay. So to perform this, what are the knowledge or a skill or a behavior which are required, which will enable an employee to perform really well. So let's say to meet this, these are the expectations. Every time, every job will have a task and then there is a expected performance. To do this, what is that my employee need? For example, let's say somebody works in a BPO or who's responding to the clients. Then you need to know that yes, this person should be really skilled with a language competency, and one has to be really good at a conversation, who can be very polite and who can have a better emotional regulation, so that they can able to respond to the requirements of the clients or meet the demands of the clients. So given that, so this becomes the competencies for a particular person to have a better performance in the specific job role. Okay, so international organization ISO has defined the competency is nothing but an application of a knowledge, skill and behaviors in performing a specific job. So these are become a competencies. Okay, so organization also conducts this competency assessment. Why? Because organization is also concerned about, do I have a right employee to do a right job? Because through this competency assessment, you will either do initially or periodically, which will help you to identify and prevent a performance problem. Because when you do a competency assessment initially, you will be able to know what this particular employee, let's say employee 1. This employee 1, I am doing a competency assessment. Through this assessment, I know what is his level of KSA, which is knowledge, skill and abilities. Based on that, I will be able to map, or otherwise periodically reviewing it will be able to help you to prevent the problems of performance, performance in the particular job role. This may be solved through task specific training, when you can do training so that you will be able to address it. Okay, so the competency assessment, what is this competency assessment now? When we say competency assessment will help you to address the problem, performance problem, either way of regularly reviewing or even before you place somebody on a job. But what is this competency assessment? A competency assessment is nothing but any system for measuring and documenting the personal competency which you are referring to employee competency. We have to develop a system to measure, assess and document their competency level. What is the goal of this? It is trying to identify the problems with the employee performance and also to correct those through training or other methods which are available, so that the employee can improve upon those competencies. Okay, so the competency based approaches are found to be very effective in linking the organizational strategy and human resource strategy, because if you look at a larger organization have gone for a competency based assessment and competency based models in their workplaces, because they wanted to identify whether my employees have the required competency to perform the job role, because the competency, every job requires certain competencies, and where my employee has a potential to perform this, then based on that I will be placing them, and they are being very successful in the job role. That's why the competency based approaches are very effective in helping my organization to achieve their business strategy. And because the competency model is essentially identifying what are the competencies are required for a specific job. It is being very successful, because when I identify these are the competencies definitely required for any person who is going to occupy the job role, then through this competency assessment you are able to map the right person for a particular job, then he or she will be a better performer in the job role. So the competency model also provides descriptions on the competencies that are common for an entire occupation or job family. For example, those who are working in an assembly line, or somebody working in a software project management, somebody works on a new product development, somebody works on an R&D. There are maybe a cluster of job. If you look at there can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are different, very similar jobs, but there are something different from each other, but they can all be grouped together, it become a job family. So you will be able to come up with an identifying as competencies required for a specific job or maybe a job family. You will be able to come up with the competencies, and this competency model can be used for a performance management also. We are looking at evaluating the employee performance, improving the employee performance, either through conducting training or either through allowing them to observe, learn, or providing a longer period of on-the-job training as well. Okay, so now the competencies included in a competency model will vary according to company strategy and goals. Yes, because when you talk about, let's say I am talking about a competency required for customer relationship manager. Okay, customer relations manager. Now I may be listed down X, Y, Z is the competency required, but now can I say this is the only competency required for any customer relations manager? May not be. This will vary with respect to my company strategy and goals. Every company may have a different strategy, different goals. Based on that, the competency might also vary for a specific job role. So the competency model, which include what are those informations included in a competency model. It will talk about a competency names. What is the competency name? For example, teamwork, client management. Then it will also provide a detailed definition about what is the competency we are talking about, and also it will also look at the behavior that represents the proficiency we are talking about. For example, a teamwork. So for that, what are the behaviors which can be representing the particular proficiency we are referring to a teamwork, and are they also demonstrating the levels of mastery on the specific competency we are talking about. So we're going to look at, for taking one example, as I said, teamwork as the competency. So let's say competency we are referring to a teamwork. Okay. So now competency which we are referring is a teamwork. The teamwork is defined now. So it is establishing a constructive and solid interpersonal relationship, treating others with courtesy and respect, working effectively with other members in a team, regardless of the organization level, background, whether you are regardless of your educational background, your experience, race, ethnicity, where you come from, which class or group you belong to, and working to resolve disagreements, the conflict between the people, attempting to persuade others to reach an agreement when there is conflict or disagreement, then abiding by and supporting the group decisions, facilitating team interaction and maintaining focus on group calls. These are the ways it is detailedly defined. So when I say competency called teamwork, now the question will come, what is teamwork according to this competency? This lists down very clearly in detail. So competency of teamwork, this is how it is defined. These are the important components of teamwork. Now I know when I say competency teamwork, this is the component I am referring to. Now what are we going to see? The behavior that represents the proficiency. The proficiency we are talking about teamwork. Okay. So now let's say, so how do you see the behavior? Handling differences in work styles effectively when working with the co-workers. When you're working with the co-workers, how you are able to work effectively with the co-workers, capitalizing the strength of the others on a team to get work done. Let's say some team members are very good at some skill. Are you appreciating the team member to contribute so that the team can perform really well? And also anticipating potential conflict. You know that when you work with multiple people in a team, you are it is likely to see that yes, there can be a conflict, and are you addressing them directly and effectively, motivating others to share their opinions and suggestions, and demonstrating a personal commitment to group goals. Are you really contributing towards achieving or enabling the team to achieve the group goal? So these are some of the behaviors which represent the proficiency in which we are referring to the teamwork. Okay. So now the last one we will talk about is that demonstrated level of mastery. When we say these are the behaviors which represents the teamwork, a person who possesses the teamwork as a competency, now we have to see whether this model is presented as visually appealing graphic. So the presentation of a model in a graphic form helps the user to quickly grasp the features of the model. So you represent the mental model of you working in a team, so that this competency model helps any employee or an organization to understand, okay, what are we talking about in the competency model. So visually you see somebody is working in a group, you say there is some quarrel, somebody is working cohesively, appreciating, laughing, having a good time. All that can be graphically representing, so that you show that yes, this represents to a team effort, supporting each other and helping everybody to achieve the group goals. Okay, so these are the ways in which the competency model are provided. Now we are going to come up with how do we develop or how do we identify the competency for a specific job role. So this is actually a process. Okay, so everything in an organization always starts with the business strategy and goals. If you recollect, when we began this module, we also started with yes, my training need assessment also draws heavily from the organization strategy and goals. So first you need to identify what is the business strategy and goals. That has to, through this you need to identify jobs and positions and job families. See, for example, I have a specific business goal that will tell me, let's say X is my goal. To achieve X, I need to have people not only in one position, maybe various level. Okay, 1, 2, 3, performing different jobs, different tasks. Okay, now you need to conduct interviews and focus group with the top performance. Why? For example, let's say X is a particular job role. Okay, now to identify what are the competencies which we are talking about, knowledge, skill, abilities which are required for performing well. We are referring to performing well. What are we referring to performing well? Which is indicated through meeting or exceeding the expectation. Okay, that's what we are referring to performing well. Okay, now how do I do it? I need to choose who are exceedingly done well in the past few quarter or a 1 year or a few years, then I need to talk to those people, conduct interviews with those people so that I can decode what are those knowledge, skills and abilities these top performers exhibited. Because they exhibited, they become a top performer, right? They would have shown some behavior, they would have performed in some way, that is why they were continued to be a top performer. So I'm trying to decode what is that behavior, what is the skill they should exhibit so that somebody working in the particular job role will become a top performer. So that's why I need to conduct an interview with the or a focus group with the particular top performer so that I will be able to decode the competency which will make somebody to perform really well. So then comes developing a competencies and a competency model. So now I will need to come up with a competency model. We will say, okay, for this specific job role, what are the competencies which are required, and then I need to define the competency, say the behaviors which are required part of the competency, and then say how do I also so diagrammatically the excelling, demonstrating the mastery in the particular competency. And what I have to do, I should also validate and review the model. We will see in detail in each of the steps in developing the competency model in an organization. Okay, now the first step is, of course, as I was already saying, yes, you need to identify what are the business strategies which will help you to identify what type of competencies are required to ensure that yes, my business goals are met and company strategy is supported. Okay, so any change in the company goal or strategy will also reflect addition of a new competency requirement. For example, I've been only producing a product, let's say a hardware product. Now my business strategy says along with you also provide a software product. Maybe an example can be, let's say, Dell or HP. They were primarily hardware, computer hardware products. Now they also offer software services for their clients, various parts of the clients. So now what is that my business strategy is choosing? Previously hardware, you would have had a different competency, X, Y, Z. Now if you look at, I need to add A, B, C also, right? So that's why it's also important to identify the business strategy which will determine what are the competencies required to help my organization to achieve this business goals or a strategy of my organization. Okay, now when you identify the strategy, you need to identify what are the jobs or a group of jobs which are required to perform this specific goal we are aiming at, because we have a goal with us. So the goal has to be achieved. To achieve the goal, we will have different tasks to be performed so that you will be able to achieve the goal. So you need to identify which are the jobs or a job position which are required to achieve the goal of an organization. Now you need to conduct interviews, as I was detailing in a previous slide, that yes, you need to conduct interviews with the top performers to identify the specific competencies which are essential for the having those competencies for a specific job role. So this will also help you to see that, okay, so when somebody is hired for the specific role, you need to train them on the competencies, because we already identified through conducting an interview the top performers, we identified these are the competencies which are important to be a top performer in the particular role. So you can have to direct your training around these competencies for the specific job role. Then you need to come up at this stage, you need to develop the competency model. So you need to identify the competencies and you need to develop the competency model. And what will you have to do in identifying the competencies? There are several approaches you can use to identify the competencies. Analyzing one or several star performers, this is one way to identify the competencies. Okay, another is surveying for the persons who are familiar with the job. It is again like going back to people who are very familiar in performing the particular job. You conduct a survey with those people who perform the similar job so that they have adequate information. Then they say, okay, for this particular job you need to have this skill set or knowledge or a behavior. So then you will say, okay, these are the competencies which are required, either through star performer or through people who know the similar job, who are performing a similar job, or investigating the benchmark data of the good performers. So you can also investigate the benchmark data against the good performers, then you will be able to identify this competencies so that you will be able to associate those competencies with a specific group of jobs or a family of jobs for the specific role in an organization. Now comes validate and review the model. So how do you validate and review the model? So there should be determination to see whether this competency included is truly related to the effective performance. That's where we need to validate. Okay, so why we need to validate it? Because it is important that we need to verify that their competency is necessary for job success, and level of proficiency of the competency is appropriate. So now how do we do it? Let's say I have identified a competencies, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I need to see to validate this, right? So whether whatever the competencies I identified, these are the competencies I identified either through assessing the top performer, or talking to people who do a similar job, or through benchmarking data analysis, and all that I have identified now. Now I need to validate. So how? I need to see, employ people who are with this specific skill set, these competencies on the job, and I need to see how they perform. Performance in terms of output or outcome I see. So through these indicators, the performance indicators, okay, it can be key performance indicators we called KPI in an organization setup. So through this KPI, how much of my employees with this specific skill set which I identified as a competency are able to either meet or exceed the KPI. Then what I'm saying, I'm validating that yes, the competencies I identified is required for a person who will be successful in a particular job role. So that's how I will have to validate. In case you identified this, okay, now in the process of validating, you find that despite the fact that my employees have these competencies, but they are not able to meet or exceed the performance indicators, then I need to review that yes, am I missing out some competencies, or maybe I added competencies which are not very specific for the job role. This is why it is very important that you have to conduct this competency assessment periodically and regularly, so that you will be able to identify, is there a deficiency. Now when you identified they are not able to meet or exceed the KPI, which we are referring to key performance indicators, then the training comes to the rescue, right? The training will help you to build those competencies. Yes, for this specific set of employees, plus X, Y, Z to be added part of the competencies. How do I build this X, Y, Z? Through training. Okay, now the competency assessment also helping me to identify my training need, which is becoming a resource for me to build my training modules or coming up with my training objectives. Okay, so what is the usefulness of this competency model? The competency model is of course useful in several ways, because they identify the behaviors needed for an effective job performance. They provide tool for determining what are the skills are necessary to meet the present need or the future skill needs, and it helps to determine what skills are needed at different career points. Somebody is progressing in one level to the next level, what are the skills required in various levels, and it also create a roadmap for identifying and developing employees. So it will tell you, okay, you have to develop your employees on these skills. That's how these competency models are helping in an organization for a training and development. Okay, and it also helps to provide a framework for ongoing coaching and feedback to develop employees to present and future roles, because it also tells an organization that yes, these are the specific set of competency which are required to perform a specific job role. So, and you provide a regular feedback or a coaching, so that you are going to develop employees who can meet the current requirement and also the future roles in an organization setup. They also provide, the competency model provide a set of criteria that are used to identify appropriate development training activities for employees. So this, as I said, yes, competency model, as I was explaining in the previous slide, yes, it is helping you to identify Was there adequacy in competency to perform a role, or is there an inadequacy in a competency, or probably eliminating some competency which are not required for a specific role? This way it is helping you to identify an appropriate training and development activities for my employees. Okay, so this lecture, these are the references, and this lecture we understood what are the competencies which are required for a specific job role, how do you conduct the competency assessment, how do you build the competency model, because we understood that yes, competency model is one of the effective way of coming up and helping an organization to identify what are the specific KSA, which you are referring to, knowledge, skill and abilities of my employees, so that they are performing really well in the specific job role. So this also helps to identify specific set of training needs so that it will add to the growth of the organization. So with this we are completing this module. We will be meeting you in the next module on program design. Now having identified the training need, how to conduct the training need assessment, now we will be moving to the next module which will be talking about program design, how do you design the training. Thank you.